What's up, everybody? Kevin Allen here, aka the Fantasy Football Geek, and today we are talking about one of my favorite subjects in existence, season-long fantasy football. Listen, if you guys know me, you know my first love is season-long fantasy football. It's what got me into daily fantasy sports. It's how I discovered FanDuel back in 2011, before anybody had heard of it. I just loved season-long fantasy football. I just love fantasy football. It was my first obsession. And this idea of daily fantasy football was like, what the hell is this? I thought it was a scam. It was amazing. I found it. But really, for me, it was just an opportunity to play more of my favorite thing, which is fantasy football. Now, obviously, daily fantasy has evolved massively since then, and there's no denying it. But we still have our first love. So today I'm going to talk about season-long fantasy football and the DFS Army NFL Draftkit, which has dropped as of, it is live as of right now. Today is July 25th, 2019. So just in time for fantasy football season. Before I get into the draft kit, you have your draft kit here. You have your NFL trade analyzers. So what you're looking at here is the DFSArmy.com website. And if you look across these tabs, you'll see a tab for the NFL draft kit. I'm going to click on that. We also have an NFL trade analyzer, which is really cool for in-season adjustments. But the first thing I want to talk about is the draft kit itself and how you should use it as a member. So the first thing, I just went to the tab to open up the draft kit, and that's again right here on the DFSArmy.com website. Now, the first thing I like to do is open this up in Google Sheets. And the reason we do that is so we can edit, adjust, and sort these positions. I have it opened in, I happen to have that through the magic of television production opened already. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how the sheet works, what all these tabs are, what you're looking for, and how to use this to help dominate your fantasy football draft. Now again, very important. The draft kit is available to all DFS Army subscribers. I don't care if you're a light subscriber, a VIP subscriber, a season-long subscriber, you're on a monthly free pass, it doesn't matter. We do not keep things from our subscriber family. That's how we operate in DFS Army. We are not like other sites that are going to hammer you for every little thing. Speaking of which, NFL preseason is about a week away, and no one covers NFL preseason daily fantasy the way that DFS Army does. We're going to have a research station going. We're going to have coaches' notes. We're going to have a team of coaches scanning all of the details we can find, Twitter, beat reporters, trying to figure out who's going to play, who's going to get playing time. We dominated preseason last year, and we're going to dominate it again this year. You do not have to pay extra if you're a DFS Army subscriber. And if you're not a DFSArmy.com subscriber or VIP, now is the time to get in. You'll get access to the draft kit that I'm about to talk about and go over. You'll get access to our preseason coverage. You want to sign up as a VIP monthly subscriber. That's ideal. VIP includes our coaching forums. That's where a lot of the magic happens. And make sure you use my personal promo code GEEK, G-E-E-K. That's promo code GEEK to get 20% off your DFS Army subscription. Do it. You lock in 20% off. $39.99 a month gets you everything that we do. We crush all sports. I don't even want to get into it here. Let's get into the draft kit. Now, I'm just going to go back real quick and let you know that when you go to NFL Season Long, we've on the main website, you've got a bunch of podcasts that have already come out breaking down all of the various position groups, rankings, ratings. Myself and Says have broken these down. We've got a series of podcasts going. Yeah, here we go. NFL podcasts. You can just click here. You can see them all. Tight end position, QB position, WR position, RB position, best ball strategies for 2019. These are all free. So if you're not a DFS Army subscriber and you're just watching this video right now, you can jump onto DFSArmy.com and check out these podcasts, learn about these different things. We have more podcasts that will come out pretty much every single week leading up to the season. We're working on one for new rules for commissioners ways to set up your leagues that are more fun, kind of the latest and greatest things. A lot of cool things on the horizon. But let's get back to our draft kit. How to use it. Okay, so what you're looking at right here is the QB position rankings. Let me actually scroll this down just a little bit so you can see everything. And basically what you have here is the sheet itself. You've got a bunch of tabs here: QB rankings, WR rankings, RB, TE, defense, and special rookie dynasty rankings, which is awesome for your dynasty leagues. Love that. But I want to go through each position group one by one. I'm not going to break down or get into why players are ranked the way that they are. I don't think that's super important. That's what's on our pods. I do those with season long says. Again, regularly, and you can just check those out. But what I'm going to show you really here is how to use this tool. So again, you've got your player, team, when is their bye week. Then you have Geek ranking. That's the ranking that I have. Now, very important to note, this is ranking against position group. So he's not my number one player overall, but rather I rank him as the number one overall QB this year. You have your says ranking. Again, this is versus his position group, not overall. This is an aggregate Army rank. Again, taking Geek and says ranking together, you'll note that both of us have this player as number one overall. So he shows as number one as the Army rank. Positional ADP is number one overall. That position ADP is very important. This is the player's average draft position versus his position group. So Pat Mahomes is going as the number one overall QB this season in fantasy drafts across various sites, Yahoo, all the different sites where people do season-long fantasy drafting currently. Now, this is very important. You don't notice the difference on this particular player, but I'll jump down to Deshaun Watson because I want to talk about this value tab. Very, very important. We want green. What does green mean? Green means that Cez and I have this player significantly ranked above their ADP for their position. So where drafters just in general are drafting Deshaun Watson number 4 overall after Aaron Rodgers, both Cez and myself have him ranked above Aaron Rodgers, and in my case, I have him number 3. Cez has him number 2 overall. Doesn't matter. The point is, if you're following either of our advice and you're interested in our rankings against ADP, we have him 1.5 spots on average above where this player is going in regular fantasy drafts. A couple other numbers here. Positional SOS, or strength of schedule. This is a number that's provided by our data provider, Fantasy Data, but strength of schedule meaning how difficult are the opponent's teams based on their performance generally last season against ADP performance last season versus this position group. So basically, Deshaun Watson has a middle-of-the-road strength of schedule difference. We want lower numbers. So in the case of Andrew Luck, his strength of schedule is quote-unquote, number 6 overall is very easy. Kyler Murray, very easy. Drew Brees, easy strength of schedule, or a schedule that that's facing teams that produce a lot of points to opposing quarterbacks, or at least they did last season. Here's number 1 overall, Cam Newton, so sounds good. And interestingly, the top overall ranked quarterback this year is facing the most difficult schedule of any quarterback, so that should be interesting. I don't weigh that ranking all that heavily personally. And then finally you have tiers. So tiers are very, very important in fantasy drafting because essentially when you're tiering up a group, you're grouping a bunch of players together that all are similar, right? So both Cez and myself have Pat Mahomes in a tier all on his own. I have him ranked in a tier number 1. He's as the only tier 1 player. Cez has him as the only tier 1 player. Army tier is number 1 overall, where you'll note that here is the next grouping of 3, at least for me. This is the next grouping of 3 where all 3 of these players are fairly interchangeable. And of course, you move to the next tier. I have that as Baker Mayfield and Matt Ryan. And then, the tiers kind of move along those lines. So, and you have your aggregate and of course my tier and Alan's tier, which you can see here. Now, here's a very, very important function. Let's say you want to sort the sheet by my rankings, Geek rankings, right? Right now they're sorted by Army rank. So it's a combination of my player ranking and the Says player ranking. You get a Army ranking, which is the combination of the two. That's how the sheet will naturally tend to sort. But you as a user can choose to sort by Geek rankings for your own personal use. So let's say you say, hey, I like Geek's rankings. I want to work with what he's got when I'm doing my draft. Okay, cool. You can do that. Sort by my rankings. Now you see it in the order that I have them. Or you could say, no, Says is the man. I want to sort by his rankings. Okay, sort it by Says rankings. Boom. He loves him some Carson Wentz, a lot more than I do. No excuses. You get a lot of different approaches. He loves him some Russell Wilson, a lot more than I do. Okay. Okay. I like Kyler Murray a little bit more. Okay. So there you go. Now, another thing I really love is this value tab, because it's really going to show you which players at a position group we like significantly above market value. Or below market value. And this will give you that readout. So another very important measure. And finally, and perhaps the most important measure, overall ADP. So this is where it brings it all together. Our assumption in creating rankings is that you're playing in a 12-team single quarterback league. It could be half-point PPR, it could be full PPR. If you're at this point playing in a non-PPR league, you need to have a talk with your commissioner and tell him what the fuck are you doing, bro. No one plays that anymore. Either half-point PPR or every league really should be full PPR at this point. I'm a big advocate of 2 QB leagues, but it's not to the point where it's common enough to really build rankings around that. But obviously, if you're playing in a 2 QB league, then these quarterbacks will be going in the first and second round. In the case of a standard league, though, we're using overall ADP to tell you essentially what round that player is going in on average in 12-team drafts. So just because Pat Mahomes is ranked #1 overall does not mean you should take him first overall. His overall ADP is 3.02, so third round, pick 2. In a 12-team league, you're talking that's pick number 38 overall. So you don't want to take this guy. If you love Pat Mahomes this year and you want to use him, his ADP is about the beginning of round 3. You can plan your draft around that once you know your draft position. So let's say you say, I'm going to get Pat Mahomes on my team this year. I don't give a fuck, right? So you're pretty much going to need to be grabbing this guy right at the end of round 2 in your 12-team league. Now, if you know that you're going to be picking right at the end of round 2 or at the beginning of round 3, you can make your plans around that. Sometimes you can sit back and hope that a player falls to you. So if you want to get him but at a value, let's say you have a pick at the end of round 3. You have pick 3.09. And you want Mahomes. You might risk it and say, you know what? If he falls to me at 3.09, I'll grab Mahomes. I like him there. But, if I can't get him, big shit. Doesn't mean I have to panic and grab Andrew Luck. Look, Luck is 4.09, so at 3.09, you don't have to take him there. You can wait and hope that you can get Luck at 4.03 or 4, wherever you are on the comeback, and you'd be like, oh, I could still get Luck at 4.04. So you missed on Mahomes. That doesn't mean, oh shit, let me get the next guy. Or if you think that you like Deshaun Watson, again, you could wait till 5.07. So overall ADP is one of the most important things to pay attention to when using any draft kit. I implore you to pay very close attention to these numbers because, again, our rankings are not about where you should specifically take a player in the draft. It's about where we rank the player versus his position group specifically. But where you should take a player in a draft has a lot more to do with overall ADP numbers. And one of the cool things that we're doing this year, this sheet constantly updates. So we are doing a 2-week rolling window of ADP. We're trying to keep it as fresh and as sort of up to date as we possibly can, just because overall ADP, it's like ownership projections in daily fantasy sports. Super important to use that to make your decisions. Rankings are great, but we want to play our draft against where ADPs are going. So we want to decide, do we want him ahead, or do we want to let him drop a little bit and take a chance? You know, where do I want this player? That's what this overall 12-team ADP number is really giving you. So I'm just going to run through some of the other position groups real quick, and you'll kind of get a look and see. One of the last, this is our wide receiver rankings. And again, you can sort by Geek ranking if you like. Hey, I've got Tyreek Hill up pretty high. And here's what's funny. When I first wrote up Tyreek Hill, I'm just going to tell you, I put these rankings out. I'd actually put these together initially a few weeks back. Tyreek Hill was going in the 7th or 8th round. He was still going super late because it wasn't clear if he'd get suspended. And I knew that even if he got suspended, this guy's way too good to be going there. So I have him on every single best ball league team I've put together so far. I have a 90% ownership of Tyreek Hill, and I've been getting him in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, even earlier in the season, 7th, 8th, and 9th round. So I basically fully expect to dominate all of those leagues. But nonetheless, as you can see here, news recently came out that Tyreek Hill is probably not going to be suspended and not going to have any issues, and his position ADP and his overall ADP has been rising steadily because there's a 2-week rolling sort of lead time on these ADPs. By the time you're actually drafting your fantasy draft, another week or 2 or 3 will have passed since right now, and you will see that Tyreek Hill is going to be probably a late 1st or early 2nd round draft pick. So you'll see that ADP go all the way up to 2.1 or 2.2 or 1.11 or somewhere in that range. So this is our wide receiver ranking. Again, a lot of the same stuff. You've got your tiers. You've got your, says it's a much bigger tier than I have for tier 1 wide receivers. That's all good. But you've got your tiers. You've got your Army combo. You've got your set Geek ranks, your Says ranks. And the final piece of the puzzle here are the notes. I love notes. We spend a lot of time writing up these notes. So I wish you guys will take time to look them over, to read it. But we're breaking down our reasoning for these rankings over here in the notes column. A lot of research goes into putting these numbers together. And what I try to do is take you through the thought process and explain why we like a certain player, particularly when players are ranked heavily above where their ADPs are. Why is that the case? Why are you guys a little lower on a certain player than maybe the field is? And again, the most important factor that I like to look at is the value tab. And I'll show you an example here as we're doing this video. Both Says and myself have Juju Smith-Schuster ranked well above their average draft position or where the field has Juju Smith-Schuster. We both agree on that, which is a rare thing for me and Says. We talked about it quite a bit in depth on the wide receiver pod, but what you need to do as a DFS Army member or somebody who's using the tools or just a reader or somebody who's happens to be watching this to get some free rankings or whatever, or to learn some knowledge about fantasy football, what you need to do is pay very close attention to these value numbers because these are players that we're ranking above or below the field. So this is where you find your edge. Who do we like a little bit more than where other people are drafting them? If we could be right about these, then we're going to do really well in our fantasy drafts. And you'll see they get more dramatic as you kind of go down the list a little bit. You can see apparently both of us are a lot higher on Allen Robinson than the field at this moment. Says it's really high on Allen Robinson. That's cool. Not as much as I am, but all good. 27th overall. If you look at value and positional ADP, 33rd overall, you can compare it regardless of whose it is. So Al Robinson's going 33rd overall. Geek has him as 27. Says has him as 20th. That's where you get this value number. But whose ever rankings you want to follow, that's up to you. Sammy Waka, I'm looking for some more big discrepancy one. Here you have some a whole crew of players that Says and I like a lot more than the field do. He is not a big fan of N'Keal Harry as well, although I'm pretty close to market value, so that's where you get this value discrepancy tab. But this is a pretty good... Here, Moncrief is a guy I happen to like a lot. Says likes him a lot. We both like him above the field. Well, you might be asking yourself, why? Why do they like this guy? Okay, well, let's read the notes. High upside bench stash or WR2 role for the Steelers is available. I think Moncrief is just being undervalued. He has potential to be the WR2 for a pass-heavy team that no longer has Antonio Brown. That's why I like him. Says is predicting he can get 100-plus targets from Big Ben this season. That's all we really need for a guy who's going this late. I like Funchess a lot more than the field as well. Big target, end zone target that Andrew Luck has really never had. So you'll see these reasonings in the notes. And again, go through it position group by position group, and you'll note the differences. Now, another very, very important consideration here is just looking at position groups and tiers and understanding drafting by tier. So when you're drafting your running back, for example, you're in the first round, here you're seeing these are guys who are ranked right at the top, 1.02, 1.04, etc., etc. Total ADP. But more importantly are tiers. So when you're trying to figure out, all right, where do I pivot to away from taking a running back and onto grabbing a wide receiver? Well, once the first tier of running backs are gone, you could really start to think about it. Should I consider a tier 1 wide receiver in that spot? So once those tier 1 running backs are gone, you start to look at these tier 1 wide receivers, look at their ADPs as well, because again, I don't want you taking Juju Smith-Schuster at 1.06 overall when there's a reasonable chance that he's going to be available somehow and somewhere in the second round. So, you got to watch the ADP as well so that you're drafting wisely. I'd rather get value on my plate than I would grabbing a guy early where I might have been able to get him later in the draft. So how do I use this number? 2.07. Let's say I have pick 11 in the first round. So I know I'm going to be picking 11th, and then I'll be picking again 14th. Well, here it says the average draft position for Juju Smith-Schuster is 2.07. I'm going to have pick 2.0. I have pick 1.11 and 2.2. Now, I love Juju, and I want to get him on my team. Should I take him at 1.11 when his ADP is 2.07 currently? Hell no. Hell no. That's not how you do it, right? So at 1.11, I'm going to say, you know what? I think Juju's going to be there for me at 2.02. What am I going to do instead? Let me grab a running back that I like here. Oh, look, Le'Veon Bell fell to 111. You know what I'm saying? Here's a running back that we all like that maybe fell. Grab him there instead. That's the key. That's the key. Being aware of where these guys are going on average. Most of your opponents in your season-long fantasy draft are basically drafting based on ADP. So they'll see that player sitting there, ADP, it's right there. He's sitting, he's next ranking off the board on whatever ranking that Yahoo or ESPN or whichever app they're using has. And they believe in that. They're afraid to go away from that. You want to use that to your advantage. Don't reach for players that will be there with your next pick. Draft smart. Again, notes, every player, when something new happens, we're going to throw an update in there. You'll see why. Well, you know who's an updated player? Let's look at here. Here you go. Darius Geis. A recent update. 725. Oh boy, that's today. Liking Geis more and more. Seems to be over his hammy issues. Coach talking about how he's a great receiving threat. Darius Geis going in round 5, pick 9 overall, ranked as the, let's see, positional ADP, 27th overall. He'll be making his way up draft board. So currently, he is where he's at. But if you can get him at all, right now it looks like you have to be somewhere in the fifth round to pick this guy up. But you can get a 5th rounder who could be a really great fit for your team, etc., etc. So that's the type of stuff that you want to look for. Again, I do like to look and sort by value. I think this is a very important measure. Who are the players that we like a little bit more than the field? Who do we like a little bit less than the field? Yeah, look at that. Where's my boy Greg Olsen? Greg Olsen's about to be climbing up these rankings as well. I just did an update on him. He's my 11th ranked pick overall. But make sure that you understand about sorting. That's very, very important. These are sorted by Army rank, which is a combination of Geek and Says. If you want to follow me, you're going to sort by the Geek ranking for each position group. If you want to follow Says, you're going to sort by the Says ranking. It also helps to compare and contrast these two things and sort of make sure that you're doing whatever you want to do, you're following who you want to follow. I'm a big advocate of reading the notes and making your own decisions. I know that you guys who are listening to this are very, very sharp. You know your fantasy football already. You don't need me to tell you who to draft. It helps to hear opinions. It helps to have someone to bounce ideas off of. It helps for all of that. We all work together as a family, try to help each other out, so that's awesome. But these are our rankings, and this is what we've done. I've been very successful at season-long fantasy football for many, many years. Says has been incredibly successful, a high-stakes player as well. So really, really sharp people to give advice from. Final tab I'm going to show you here in the draft kit is the rookie rankings. If you're in a dynasty league and you're looking for rookie rankings specifically, that's what this is. This isn't designed for season long, but rather overall rankings for rookie players right now. So this is here. Not going to get too into it, but that's a tool that you have. One final thing I'm going to show you for DFS Army subscribers, our trade analyzer. This is a pretty cool tool that you can use in season. You have to open it in Google Sheets as well, but basically you're going to type in your player name and your opponent's player name, and it will help evaluate the trade for you. And these numbers are based on average draft position at the time, at the current time. So, don't use this as the end-all be-all, but it gives you a pretty good idea. Hey, Zeke Elliott's being drafted here, Breeze is a different spot, and there's a discrepancy in the value there. Very nice little tool to use, but I think most of you are going to be a lot more excited to jump into DFS Army Slack and simply ask the question of, hey, what do you think of this trade? And let our experts, let Season Long Says, or myself, the Geek, answer that and kind of give you our opinions on these trades. There's a lot of players out there where I tell them, don't make any moves without consulting me first, because some of you guys bring some terrible trades to the table, and other times they're amazing, and I'm like, dude, accept it now. So we've got all that going on. DFS Army Draft Kit, really awesome stuff. We're going to help you crush your draft. And like I said, this will update regularly as the offseason progresses, and probably fast and probably furious as draft season hits and the training camps get into full swing and we really start to get a sense of players and a lot of coaches' blurbs. A lot of these numbers are going to change massively. You can use these numbers for your best ball leagues alongside our Best Ball Strategies podcast. And of course, you can use them if you're drafting early. Again, as we speak, and I sit here right now, is July 25th. And so you can use these numbers for any crazy early drafts that you might be getting involved with. And again, jump into dfsarmy.com forums. Feel free to ask questions. We have a new season-long fantasy football channel where all of your questions can be aggregated and we'll answer them, and you could talk to us and ask questions. And again, remember that we have preseason coverage starting. The first game is in a week from now. Actually, let me jump over to this. preseason research station is live and in effect. Just getting started. Going to kind of show you a little bit of details for each position group for whoever's playing in terms of what they did in the past, how many attempts and touches various players got at various positions. So we have a lot of that going on. We have preseason coaches' notes coming out. We have preseason pretty much full blast coverage coming. So all good stuff. And of course, all of your DFS and NFL and pretty much everything you could possibly hope for needs all coming back. We're going to crush it this year. Enjoy the draft kit. Super excited to bring this to you guys. And obviously hit me up with any questions or any comments as well. Take care, guys.